Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to read two chapters today. We're going to read Isabel and Mahmoud's all in one. All right, you ready? Here we go. Isabel, back in Havana, Cuba in 1994. Isabel opened her eyes and lowered the trumpet from her lips. She was sure she had just heard the sound of breaking glass, but cars and bicycles kept screaming by under the bright sun of the Malecon like nothing had happened. Isabel shook her head, convinced she was hearing things, and put her lips back up to her trumpet. Then suddenly a woman screamed, a pistol fired, and the world went crazy. People rushed out of the side streets, hundreds of them. They were men mostly, many of them shirtless in the 100-degree August heat. Their white and brown and black backs glistened in the sun. They yelled and chanted. They threw rocks and bottles. They spilled onto the streets, and the few policemen on the Malecon were quickly overwhelmed. Isabel saw the glass window of a general store shatter, and men and women climbed inside to steal shoes and toilet paper and bath soap. An alarm rang, and smoke rose from behind an apartment. Havana was rioting, and her father and grandfather were somewhere right in the middle of it. Some people fled from the chaos, but more people raced toward it, and Isabel ran with them. Car horns beeped, bicycles swung around and pedaled back. People were as thick on the ground as sugar cane. Isabel weaved in and out among them, her trumpet tucked under one arm, looking for Papi and Lito. Freedom! Freedom! Chanted the rioters. Castro out! Enough is enough! Isabel couldn't believe what she was hearing. People caught criticizing Fidel Castro were thrown into jail and never heard from again. But now the streets were full of people yelling, "Down with Fidel! Down with Fidel!" "Papi!" Isabel cried. "Lito!" Her grandfather's name was Mariano, but Isabel called him Lito, short for Abuelito, which is grandpa. Rifles boomed, and Isabel ducked. More police were arriving by motorcycle and military truck, and the protest was turning bloody. The rioters and police traded rocks and bullets, and a man with a bloody head staggered past Isabel. She reeled in horror. A hand grabbed her, making her jump, and she spun around. "Lito!" She threw herself into her grandfather's arms. "Thank God you're safe," he told her. "Where's Papi?" she asked him. "I don't know. We weren't together when it started," her grandfather said. Isabel thrust her trumpet into his arms. "I have to find him." "Jabella!" her grandfather cried. He used her childhood nickname, like he always did. "No, wait!" Isabel ignored him. She had to find her father. If he was caught again by the police, he'd be sent back to prison, and this time they might not let him out. Isabel dodged through the crowds, trying to stay away from where the police had formed a line. "Papi!" she called. "Papi!" But she was too short, and there were too many people. High above her, Isabel saw people climbing out onto the big electric sign hanging from the side of a tourist hotel, and it gave her an idea. She worked her way to one of the cars stuck in the riot, an old American Chevy with chrome tail fins still around from before the Revolution in the 1950s. She climbed up the bumper and onto the hood, and the man behind the steering wheel honked his horn and took the cigar out of his mouth just to yell at her. "Jabella!" her grandfather shouted when he saw her. "Jabella, get down from there!" Isabel ignored them both and turned this way and that way, calling out for her father. There! She saw her Papi just as he reared and threw a bottle that smashed into the line of police along the seawall. It was the last straw for the police. At a command from their leader, they pushed forward into the crowd, arresting rioters and hitting them with wooden batons. In all the turmoil, a policeman caught up with her father and grabbed him by the arm. "No!" Isabel cried. She leapt down off the hood of the car and pushed her way through the pandemonium. When she got to her Papi, he was balled up on the ground, and the policeman was beside him. The policeman raised his truncheon to hit her father, and Isabel jumped in between them. "No, don't, please," she cried. The policeman's eyes flashed from anger to surprise. and then back to anger. He reared back again to hit Isabel, and she flinched, but the blow never came. Another policeman had caught his arm. Isabel blinked. She recognized the new policeman. It was Louis Castillo, Ivan's older brother. "What do you think you're doing?" the older police officer barked. Louis didn't have time to answer. A whistle blew, and the police were being summoned elsewhere. The angry cop yanked his arm free from Louis and pointed his nightstick at Poppy. "I saw what you did," he said. "I'll find you again when this is all over. I'll find you, and I'll arrest you, and I'll send you away for good." Louis pulled the angry policeman away, pausing just long enough to give Isabel a worried look over her shoulder. Louis didn't have anything to say. As her grandfather arrived and helped Isabel get her father to his feet, she understood. Poppy had to leave Cuba tonight. Oh, man. All right, guys, ready for Mahmoud? Back in Syria in 2015. The afternoon adhan from a nearby mosque echoed through the bombed-out streets of Aleppo. The melodious, ethereal voice of the Mahmoud Bahin, praising Allah and calling everyone to prayer. Mahmoud had been doing his math homework at the kitchen table, but he automatically put his pencil down and went to the sink to wash up. The water wasn't working again, so he had to pour water over his hands using the plastic jugs his mother had hauled from the neighborhood well. Across the room, Walid sat like a zombie in front of the television, watching a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon dubbed into Syrian Arabic. Mahmoud's mother came out of the bedroom where she'd been folding clothes and turned off the TV. Mahmoud's mother, Fatima, held her pink iPhone in one hand, and in her free arm she carried Mahmoud's baby sister, Anna. Fatima had long, dark hair she wore up on her head and intense brown eyes. Today she was wearing her usual around-the-house attire, jeans and a pink nurse's shirt she used to wear to work. But she'd quit the hospital when Anna was born, but not before the war had begun, not before coming home every day with horror stories about people she'd helped. Not soldiers, but regular people. She had gone nearly catatonic, while Walid, at some point, it had gotten bad enough that she just stopped talking about it. When she was finished, when he was finished washing up, Mahmoud went to the corner of the living room that faced Mecca. He rolled out two mats and began his prayers. He bowed and praised Allah, got to his feet, and when he was finished, he recognized the angels who recorded his good deeds and his bad deeds. The whole prayer took Mahmoud about 7 minutes. While he'd been praying, Walid joined him. Mahmoud waited for his brother to finish, and then they rolled up their mats and went back to their homework. Walid went back to watching cartoons. Mahmoud was just starting a new equation when he heard a sound over the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song, a roar like a hot wind rising outside. In the second it took for the sound to grow from a breeze to a tornado, Mahmoud dropped his pencil, put his hands to his ears, and threw himself under the kitchen table. By now he knew what an incoming missile sounded like, and the wall of his apartment exploded, blasting broken bits of concrete and glass through the room. The floor lurched up under Mahmoud and threw him and the table and chairs back against the wall of the kitchen. The world was a whirlwind of bricks and broken dishes, table legs and heat, and Mahmoud slammed into the cabinet. His breath left him all at once, and he fell to the floor with a heavy thud in a heap of metal. Mahmoud's ears rang with a high-pitched whine, like the TV when the satellite was searching for a signal. Above him were what was left of the ceiling light through sparks. Nothing else mattered in that moment but air. Mahmoud couldn't draw a breath. It was like somebody was sitting on his chest. He thrashed in the rubble, panicking. He couldn't breathe. Couldn't breathe. He flailed wildly at the debris, digging and scratching at the wreckage, trying to claw his way back up to a place where there was air. And then his lungs were working again. breaking in great gulps, the air full of dust, and it scratched and tore at his throat as it went down. But Mahmoud had never tasted anything so sweet. His ears still rang, but through the buzz he could hear more thuds and booms. It wasn't just his building that had been hit, he realized. It was his whole neighborhood. Mahmoud's head was hot and wet. He put a hand to it and came away with blood. His shoulder ached and his chest still seared with every hard, desperate breath. But the only thing that mattered now was getting to his mother, his sister, and his brother. Mahmoud pulled himself up out of the rubble and saw the building across the street in raw daylight, like he was standing in midair beside it. He blinked, still dazed, and then he understood. The entire outside wall of Mahmoud's apartment was gone. All right, guys, stay tuned for chapter 7. We'll read tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.